Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Ah, there you are. Okay, so today is going to be the very first day of me writing a book live for all of you guys to see. I'm going to explain my writing process, talk to you guys, have fun with it. Um, and yeah, I think we're gonna have a good time. So basically, I kind of cheated in the fact that I have already started writing a book, but I figured it'd be a lot more fun to explain to you guys how it begins rather than you guys watching me fumble through the beginning of a writing book. Because it's let's be honest, it is tough to just start over, especially when it has to do with um, something as personal as your first book. Because everyone has uh, a multitude of ideas. We all have one idea we have that we want to put on paper to create, make into a film, write a poem about. But you also have to take into account that you have to do it. It's only as perfect as it can be in your brain. So the most important part about writing a book is starting. And it does not matter what that first chapter looks like. It really doesn't. Um, as you get better at it, it should be noted that um, it'll be easier and you'll have a better type of a start for yourself rather than it being a bunch of jumbled mess. It'll be cleaner as you get better, but it really doesn't matter how bad it is because you can rewrite it as many times as you want. But what really matters is that you just start. So I started off with I started to continue writing a little children's book. This one is about third grade to fifth grade level, is what I'm kind of aiming for. Think of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, How to Train Your Dragons, that level of reading book. That's one thing you can consider when you are going to write your book. And it makes it a lot more fun when you have references in mind and who your audience you're trying to write to is. It keeps it more clean because it doesn't make sense why I would take a children's book and, you know, put in themes or wording that just aren't going to land with my audience. So when you do start a book, first you got to pick what you want to write about. And then you got to figure out who your audience is going to be. That way you can write with your audience in mind. You don't have to pressure yourself to think that, oh, if I don't write for this audience, no one's going to read it. Someone's going to read it. And like I said, you can do as many edits as you want to get it as good as you want. So let's look at this one first. So this is a little story, Dragon and Rabbit. A story about a little girl named Emmy and a young dragon named Ryu and their efforts to stop an impending storm. This one is more... I guess I should just read it for you guys and you guys can just hear it out. Chapter 1. Listen. The coming storm would prove to be an eventful one. The air fizzled with electricity. Brooding charcoal clouds swirled round and round at the mouth of the large bay. In the streets of a small fishing village, talk of bad omens and curses could be heard. Though the villagers had never seen such a ferocious storm before, Emmy was not afraid. In fact, she was excited. Emmy had first heard of the storm on a particularly sunny day not too long ago while working at the village temple. She would pluck weeds throughout the night throughout the temple's garden all morning, and during the night the same weeds would grow back by sunrise. It was a tedious job that not many would volunteer to do, but Emmy didn't mind since she had Lady Miko to keep her company. My, Emmy, I would think you had a grudge against those weeds by how forcefully you yanked them from the ground, chuckled Lady Miko. Emmy looked up from the ground and wiped the sweat off her forehead, leaving a smear of dirt. If I leave any weeds, leprechauns will show up, said Emmy. Oh, is that right? Wondered Lady Miko. And what exactly are leprechauns? They're fairies that live in wild grass patches, explained Emmy as she continuously pulled weed after weed out of the ground. They steal gold when no one's looking and eat live cats and chickens that come anywhere near them. Who told you that? One of the traders that sailed from the north, where he comes from, they're a real problem. Always tying up little kids' shoes laces in the middle of tag and whatnot. Oh, and they like to play pranks too. Emmy pulled out one particularly large weed and popped out a worm that had wrestled in the weed's roots. She used her little pointer finger to dig up a small hole for the worm to wiggle into. That's why I have to get rid of all the weeds, or else no one would want to visit the temple. You sure do like your stories, huh? Lady Miko sighed. Trust me, honey. Even if this place was some kind of haunted fairy house, people will still come when it needed divine guidance. A soft gust of wind brushed up against Lady Miko's silver hair, sending strands tumbling and glistening in the sun. The breeze then weaved through the wildly grown silver grass down the hillside towards a weathered sailor walking up the temple's path. He wore an oversized straw hat that he quickly held before the wind could snatch it away. And it seems I have my work cut out for me. Lady Miko slowly rose from the edge of the temple's porch, her worn joints creaking and shuffling towards the temple door. She glanced over her shoulder at Emmy, longingly watching the sailor make his way up the hill. You know, if you want, you can watch from the hallway. Emmy whipped her head around to face Lady Miko, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Really? Lady Miko smiled. Just try not to interrupt this time, all right? I'll be quiet, shouted Emmy. I'll be so quiet that it'll be like I'm not even there, like a mouse, a deadly quiet mouse, a ninja mouse. I'm sure you will, she said, without much certainty, and closed the temple door behind her. Emmy quickly brushed the crumbling dirt off her pants and leaving behind the bright green grass stains on her knees, and hurried down the wooden path towards the gate entrance as the man took his last few steps towards the temple's gate. If you're here to see Lady Miko, she says, she's in the main hall. The sailor tipped his oversized straw hat to Emmy and spoke with a deep, raspy voice. Much obliged, missy. He then entered the temple, leaving his scuffed black boots on the porch. Emmy soon followed. Emmy padded down the hallway quietly cracked open the main hall door. The smell of seawater erupted from the main hall. Lady Miko slowly spooned a hot, steamy emerald green liquid from the black kettle that sat with a popping fire in the center of the room. Emmy remembered the first time Lady Miko had let her try some of her special tea. It was salty, but refreshing, and had a slight lingering taste of pond scum. Would you like some? Offered Lady Miko as she held out a cup of tea to the sailor. I'm all right. Get enough of the sea on the job as is. The two of them sat around the fire while Lady Miko quietly sipped her tea with her hands gently wrapped around the cup. So what brings the captain of the pearly gates to the village temple? The orange light of the fire flickered across the sailor's weathered face. Me and me crew will be heading out soon enough for some trade in the east. It's quite a ways from here, and I'll be hoping you can give everyone on the ship some peace of mind, including I. And what were you hoping I'd do? You know, do some of that witchy magic you do. Lady Miko rested her cup on the ground, giving a slightly annoyed tink as it settled. Being a listener does not make me a witch. It's a sacred gift bequeathed to only a rare few, every 1,000 years, chosen by the nymphs of the sea to hear the secrets kept in the deepest and most secluded depths of the ocean regarding the past, present, and future. Ah, yes. Can you do that for me? Tell me if there's going to be any sketchy storms blowing in. Lady Miko sighed. That is why I'm here. Ever since the village... I'm going to skip that. Of course, my dear captain, some form of an offering is but a small necessity for such a quest, she stated, rubbing her thumb and finger together in an unsubtle way. Yeah. I caught your drift, you old crone. The sailor took off his oversized hat and reached into it, and withdrew a chunk of white quartz embedded with dozens of sparkling purple amethysts. Not too shabby, huh? Won it from one of them snobby foreigners a while back in a game of Rochambeau. He placed the gem in front of Lady Miko. Paper. They never see it coming. Lady Miko examined the offering with a look of satisfaction. I guess this will do. Her gaze shifted to the side door where Emmy watched with an unmasked anticipation. Oh, I lost my spot. Emmy, hun, would you mind fetching my things? Emmy jolted a little from the sudden request. A smile brimming from delight stretched across her face. She shuffled across the main hall in a sort of elegant manner, as she'd seen Lady Miko do many times before, towards a wooden cabinet engraved with intricate depictions of the sea and the history of the village, tied together with pearl and gold trimmings. The tarnished bronze knobs of the cabinet felt old, hundreds of years old, but sturdy enough to last hundreds of years more. Within Emmy's small hands, with a soft click, she opened the cabinet. Inside was Lady Miko's special box, engraved with designs similar to the cabinet, but made with a much older and darker wood. Not even Lady Miko could guess how old that box was. She was told when it was gifted her that every listener that had ever lived had at one point used it as their own, making it a very special box indeed. Emmy wrapped her hands around the box and carefully carried it across the room, placing it beside Lady Miko. Lady Miko patted the empty spot on the floor, inviting Emmy to sit beside her. Emmy could feel her heartbeat skipping in twos as she sat down. Long ago, chimed Lady Miko, listeners would have to wait for high tide during a full moon to hear the moon's secrets. She undid the bronze clasp of the box with care, until, as the story goes, a listener that went by the name of Rumiko had slayed a very powerful beast of the ocean. Suijin, whispered Emmy. Suijin, Lady Miko echoed Lady Miko, lifting the box's lid. The king of the ocean, and of the most powerful, the most ancient, and most feared race known to mankind. Dragons. Dragons? Piped the sailor. Sorry to break it to you, but dragons don't exist. I spent my whole life out there on the ocean, and not once had I seen any sort of dragon. They're pretty much as made-believe as leprechauns. Emmy tore her gaze away from Lady Miko to glare at the sailor with the most menacing stink eye she could muster. Believe what you will, Captain, but others would believe otherwise. From within the box, Lady Miko withdrew a single transparent scale that reflected all the colors around it, like the surface of water, more brilliant than the finest cuts of diamond. Emmy let out a small gasp, even though she had already seen it at least a dozen times by now. The sailor let out a huff. That'd just be some broken glass. Those gaze did linger. I've never seen any glass sparkle like that, said Emmy. Lady Miko couldn't help admiring it herself. Rumiko had fought off the king of dragons single-handedly from conquering all of dry land, exploiting Suijin's weakness, known only to the sea. Lady Miko rolled the scale between her hands. The scale crinkled and crunched like a crisp autumn leaf, quickly becoming a ground-up, shimmering sort of salt. Rumiko also discovered that the scales that Suijin had left behind during the battle had a special connection to the ocean. giving her the ability to hear the sea's secrets without having to wait for a full moon. Lady Miko sprinkled the dragon scale into her tea, holding the cup with both hands. She swashed the liquid around a little, dissolving the salt, and raised the cup to her pursed lips. "Are you really going to drink that?" asked the sailor. "Of course!" cried Emmy. "How else is she going to absorb the scale's power?" Lady Miko gave a quick, daunting glance to Emmy, who quickly held her tongue. "Consuming the scale is the best way to tap into its spiritual properties." Lady Miko sipped her tea until nothing remained in the cup. Slowly, without Emmy nor the sailor noticing, billows of steam from the bubbling kettle had filled the room, mimicking the scent of a cold dampness of a coastal fog. A chill ran up Emmy's spine. Lady Miko took in the steam with slow, deep breaths and held her eyes closed, listening. "How long does this usually take?" asked the sailor to Emmy. "It depends on how fast Lady Miko can find what she's looking for. The sea knows a lot, and it can be kind of hard to understand it all. Kind of like standing in the middle of a really crowded market," Emmy smiled. But Lady Miko is an excellent listener. I'm sure she'll find what she's looking for in no time." Lady Miko's cup clattered to the floor. They both turned to her, eyes wide open. "Did something happen, priestess?" "Well, what?" stammered Lady Miko. "What happened?" asked Emmy. "A storm." "What?" Lady Miko glanced at Emmy and the sailor as if suddenly remembering that she had an audience. "Captain," her deep gaze resting upon the sailor, "I would advise against going any long voyages for the time being." The sailor's eyebrows shot up. "What do you mean? You know who I am. I pulled the pearly gate to the hurricane sent by Poseidon himself. I battled waves that could drown a great blue whale. I've seen thunderstorms that make a battalion of cannons look like wet firecrackers. If you think me and my crew can handle a little storm, we can always go around. It's no problem for me to take an extra day or two to get east, but I can't in my right mind void the trip entirely. I'll have a herd of hustling merchants wanting me head on a stick." "Alice," she squeezed his shoulder firmly. "Believe me, when I say that this is the type of trouble you don't want to get involved in." She looked into her eyes. He looked into her eyes, her deep, well-knowing eyes. "You're killing me, lady." His shoulders buckled in defeat. "I trust you, Miss Miko, but," he sighed, "there's gonna be hell to pay when I tell the crew." Lady Miko chuckled. "You survived worse." Lady Miko and Emmy waved goodbye to the sailor from the gate as he walked back down the hill towards the town. Emmy looked at Lady Miko, her face now slightly tense. "Is everything all right?" asked Emmy. "Yes, everything is fine." She turned her gaze to the mouth of the bay. "I just have my work cut out for me, that's all." Okay. That was the first chapter. It's something I wrote a while ago, but from there I've written, I think, 3 more chapters. I've written 3 more chapters. I've segmented it. And basically what I'm trying to do is just continue it. Basically I'm already 3 chapters in, so we're just going to pretend that I explained it more. Something that was important about this first chapter that a lot of people need to do in their first chapter, and they tend to forget, is that when you start your story, you need to initialize immediately what this story is about. And you want people to know what the world is like. It's pretty much the first act's number 1 principle, right? There's 2 things you need to accomplish in the first act. 1, you need to establish the norm, the world, and your character. So it's an introduction to the world and your character, the status quo. And number 2, you have to introduce the dramatic question, which is when something bad happens, right? Something that changes the normal, right? That we've established. This first chapter was the normal. We have seen the world as it is. It's a little island. It's a big fishing village, and there's a great big world outside it. And it looks like, as we're reading it, mythical creatures are very normal. That's what we're learning about. We're also learning about that some people can have powers, like Lady Miko. We don't know if Lady Miko is the only type of person that can have powers or not, but that is to be seen. So, I'm actually going to put on some music later. That would actually be kind of nice to listen to as I write. But as we're going, I'm going to chime in once in a while and just put in my input of what I'm looking for in my writing. And if there's something interesting, I'll stop myself into it and explain it to you. Yeah, I mean, we are getting started. And since it's just you and me here, there's really no pressure other than to just have fun. So, let's take a look-sees here. I have a second chapter, but I feel like before I read it, I'm going to read it all, what I've done for it, and then I'm going to continue writing for the next 2 hours. And then I'll input. But, so what we've learned... Okay, so basically, this is what we learned from the first... Let me do a little note. I'll do a little note for you guys. Add a comment. I don't know. Add a comment. There we go. So, Act 1. Chapter 1. Goals. The first thing we want to do is have our hook. A hook can be a lot of things, but mainly what this hook needs to achieve is that it engages your reader. It engages your reader, and they want to continue Mostly, they want to continue because they want that answer, that they want the question that you give them to be answered. Sometimes it can be a flashback. Sometimes it can be a flash forward. Question. We give them a good hook. Can be anything. It can be action based. It can be a mystery based. For this instance, our hook is the very first line. And that's how it should be all the time. And the hook should be why isn't Emmy scared of the storm when everyone else is? Great question. It also gives it a little mystery. We also did a lot of characterization with the storm, so it feels much different. Also bad omens, so it's a lot of mystery and a lot of suspense. So we'll put that mystery and suspense. Oh, did I fucking spell that right? I mean, did I spell that right? I just felt that fucking wrong. Mystery and suspense. All right. You like that? Okay. And what we've learned here, and immediately after that, we give you a slice of life, which is probably the best way and the most classic way that you write a story, is just to go right into what you know. Okay. So this first section, if we were to, maybe I can, do you think I can highlight it different? This first section of Lady Miko and Emmy talking as she's picking weeds, and Emmy's talking about some stories she hears, you kind of get an idea of who Emmy is as a character. She is a little girl who's obviously interested in these stories and adventure, and you kind of grow to like her because you add in like a little and you kind of hold on, let me get this. Oh, what the freak, man. Where the heck is it? Fine. Okay. Okay, this is slice of life. Intro to the norm. Slice of life. Establishes the normal world. This is important because it gives your character stakes later on. And when the impossible, crazy stuff does happen, you have this to reference to of that's not normal, but this is. The idea of magical creatures is normal, but as we're going on, it's the whole storm thing isn't. It also makes it fun. It gets you attached to the character. Hopefully, as you listen, you do like Emmy, of how she is. She's supposed to be a bit of character main, mostly it really matters is the main character. Main character what personality. Okay. It's kind of like the big thing of what we're trying to learn from this is that we want, okay, what did I say? Okay, so this is pretty much the slice life. Think of this as the Shire. If we're going to Lord of the Rings as a reference, think of this as the Shire, and this is what was it? Frodo going to the festival with all the other hobbits, making tea for Gandalf. And then doing Hobbit stuff. I haven't seen it. It's been a long time since I have seen it, and I wasn't a big. I didn't watch it. I fell asleep. But it's like that. This is the Shire. This is introduction. This is making you care. This is the world that you care about, that you don't want to change. And sometimes you do want to change it. That's why there's revenge stories and isekai stories, you know? You gotta, it's supposed to encourage your reader to be invested into what happens after this. And then you like the character or you don't. Pretty much you get invested into the character. We don't really get much more than a little foreshadowing throughout this chapter, which is good. You don't want to finish the whole act in one chapter. I mean, if this was to be a movie, this is probably like the first 10 minutes. And typically the thing that happens that changes the status quo of the movie happens in the 20-minute mark. Which you will see as that comes very quickly. We're gonna see what happens. So let me actually get some music so I can just keep going with a little ambiance. Let's see what I got here. Luffy hip hop. Oh, this is Zelda. I forgot what is it there? Would it be better if I went live? Avoid the ads, because I don't pay for no ads. That sounds really good. What's this one? So I just want like a little background. Hopefully that's good. So for real quick, I'm gonna go and get myself a water and we'll continue in a second, okay? I will be right back. Okay. I'm back. Okay, so basically we are going to... Is this too much? Alright, maybe that's too much. I'll turn it on when I get back to it. So now we're going to get into chapter 2. I got my little water. I hope you guys got yours. And essentially what we want to gain from chapter 2 is to continue the normalcy of what we're trying to gain from this. We're establishing the world, and of course we're leading up to the impetus, which is going to be the thing that changes the story beyond what we were planning. Okay, now we're here. So we're going to go into chapter 2. Wish. In the days that followed, Emmy rarely saw Lady Miko. She would spend days inside the temple with a stream of visitors ranging from the simple farmers to the wealthy merchants. Emmy still plucked weeds every morning, though she did feel a bit lonely without Lady Miko's company, since children weren't allowed inside the temple. She had a constant gnawing curiosity of what the adults could possibly be doing inside, though that didn't really stop the others from asking her every day after work. You're there every day. You gotta know something, complained Odie, his round belly poking through the gaps in his skewed buttoned shirt. He's right, joined in Loon from atop the stone wall that bordered the village. He was so thin and lanky that a gust of wind could push him off. They must have left They must have let something slip. That's all adults do is talk. I already told you I don't know. Give her a break, you guys. If she doesn't know, she doesn't know. Sol feverishly drew in her notebook without even looking up. Besides, it's none of our business. If the adults don't want us to know, it's for a good reason. Loon scoffed at her. How boring can you be? It's hard to believe you're my sister. He looked over her shoulder from atop the wall as she at her detailed drawing of the village that had probably taken all morning. In fact, I bet you're a changeling. They ate my real twin when no one was looking. I could say the same about you, goblin. Sol shoved him off the wall before the ball of spit that hung from his mouth could splatter on her drawing. Why don't you ask your dad? He seems nice, asked Emmy. Odie scoffed. He is only nice to you. I bet if I asked him about it, he'd just scold me for wasting his time over town gossip. I could ask my folks. Ow! Sol dug the dull end of her pencil into Loon's leg, breaking free of his headlock. We can't bother Mama and Papa about such things. We are not allowed to bother them during the harvest season. Odie piped up. What about your mom, Emmy? I'm not so sure. Emmy's eyes drifted to the floor. Since she hasn't visited the temple, she probably doesn't know anything. Welp! Loon clapped his hands together. I guess that's the end of that. Let's play tag. Also, you're it. He poked Odie's jiggly belly and ran down the road into town. Ugh, you guys are the worst. Stop being such a baby, Odie. Sol then closed her drawing book and followed her brother. It's okay, Odie. I'm sure we'll find out sooner or later. You're the only nice person on this island, Emmy. They too followed the road to town. The market was especially bustling that day, with ships lining the whole seashore and foreigners from all over the world streaming in and out of the shops. Emmy and the other children stood in front of the sweet shop's display case. Sol searched the rows of pastries for a sweetbread with exactly 10 blueberries, while Loon kept poking Odie's sides, saying, you're it, over and over again. Odie kept trying to kick him away, spilling his chocolate foam milk onto the floor. Emmy watched with an icy pop in hand as the pub across the street filled with rosy-cheeked sailors, laughing and sloshing around the overflowing glasses. One sailor was singing quite loudly, trying to dance as his friends held him back into his chair. Another walked around the pub, continuously pouring more drink into everyone's glasses. One old man, in particular, caught Emmy's attention as he hobbled down the street into the pub. "Hey guys, it's Mr. Jin," whispered Emmy. All three of them turned around. "I thought his wife didn't want him going to the pub anymore," asked Odie. "She still doesn't," scoffed Sol. Mr. Jin pushed through the crowd of sailors to the center of the bar, where he plopped down on an empty stool. The bartender quickly passed Mr. Jin a glass overflowing with amber ale. "Come on, this will be fun." The children smiled and hurried atop the pub's stone wall, watching as Mr. Jin finished his ale and reached for another sailor's ale close by. "My, oh my, if it isn't Mr. Jin," called out one of the sailors. As he pushed his empty glass to the bartender. The oldest sailor on the middle island. "I heard you were finally going to retire, old-timer. Is that true?" "Far from it, kitty," spat Mr. Jin. "Ha!" laughed the bartender. "We wouldn't expect anything else, Mr. Jin." "Say, Mr. Jin," the sailor's face slowly creeped into a smile and whispered, "Seen anything interesting on your voyage?" The glasses stopped clinking, the sailors hushed their singing, and everyone, including the children, leaned in just a bit closer. "Interesting, huh?" Mr. Jin swirled his ale around his rough, freckled hands. "The word interesting is a pretty vague description in this line of business, kid. You know, something unearthly." Mr. Jin's silver tooth picked out from behind his impish grin. "Well, I guess I have one story." "Tell us, you old kook," cried a patron as the rest of the crowd egged Mr. Jin. Quiet down, quiet down. It's happened under a waning gibbous moon as I sailed my ship across the Cape's Horn. It was midday. That is until storm clouds blotted out the sun and turned it into night. Waves as tall as mountains swatted my boat from what felt like days, never giving me a break to wipe the salt water from my eyes. I survived by chewing on tea leaves to dull the hunger, but even that felt my tender body shutting down from the exhaustion. I doubt I'd see the light of day ever again. But then as it started, the storm scattered, ballooning me miles, if not hundreds of miles, off course. I was lost. I tried surveying for land or anything to hit where I was, but there was nothing. I was absolutely lost. I let my ship drift into the ocean's current in hope of running into a naval fleet, but days passed, then weeks, then a month. The last of my hardtack crackers had disappeared, so I resorted to hopelessly casting a finishing line into the bubbling brine. They don't call it the Dead Sea for nothing, but against all odds, a miracle snatched the fishing line. With the last of my strength, I pulled in the line, battling my life. I was determined to eat whatever beast was lied on the other end. As the line slacked, a tail that glittered like the setting sun bubbled into the surface. To my surprise, this creature was no seal pup, What faced me was, "You caught a mermaid?" exclaimed the sailor. "What? No, you buffoon. Mermaids migrate to the north every summer. They wouldn't be caught dead boiling alive on the most southern edges of the map." "So kelpie was it?" asked the bartender. "What are you, an idiot? Kelpies reside in bogs, not the sea," replied the sailor. "Now, hold on. There's a race of kelpies that live in salt water." Mr. Gin Mr. Gin had turned red in the face, edging onto purple. "Will you brush off, you sneezing hounds? Let me finish." The men fell silent. He cleared his throat. What appeared before me was something much more profound than a bottom-feeding cryptid. What appeared before me was a wishing fish. The tavern-goers' shimmering excitement dulled to an unanimous confusion. Emmy and her friends looked just as bewildered. "What's a wishing fish?" "Isn't it obvious?" exclaimed Mr. Gin. "It's a fish that grants wishes." A moment passed as the crowd absorbed what Mr. Gin had said. Then an eruption of laughter followed. "You really had us there, Mr. Gin, but if you're going to make something up, at least be somewhat realistic." "Quit your laughing. I'm telling the truth. If it weren't for the wishing fish, I wouldn't be alive to tell the tale," he continued, regardless of the crowd's hullabaloo. As I heaved the fish up, tears streamed down my face like a leaky faucet. I imagined all the food that awaited me: pickled fish eggs, salted fish jerky, maybe some thinly sliced sashimi with soy sauce, but of course, this was no normal fish. As I leaned over the hall to finish the job, it cried out, "Wait, good sir, do not kill me!" The shock, the near thought of a beast speaking, almost sent me overboard, but I held firm on that fishing line, knowing that this could be the last meal I'd ever get the chance to eat. "You can't fool me, fish. Accept defeat and become my dinner." If a fish could shed tears, I'm sure it would have, when I continued to pull the line up. Please, I'll give you anything, whatever you want." I found the poor fish's cries amusing, so I lessened the line just a little. "Whatever I want? Well, I guess I fancy a steak dinner." "Done!" And by the gods, a steak dinner fit for a king appeared before me. "Now please let me go." "How did you do that?" "Isn't it obvious? It's magic." Perhaps if I wasn't mad with hunger, I would have asked the fish to magic me home. But the smell of that decadent, fat, dripping roast casted all my problems to the wind. I let go of the line and stuffed my gluttonous mouth, and the wishing fish was gone. I was rightfully peeved with myself. I continued my drift at sea for another 3 days. On the 4th day, I chanced upon the wishing fish again, tangled in the old fisher's net. "Oh, please, kind sir, free me from this net, and I'll grant you a second wish, I swear it." Tempted again, I was to wish for a second steak dinner, but I held my resolve. "If you want my help, then point me home." "Done!" cried the fish. "Now let me free." I cut the wishing fish free. If a fish could smile, that fish would. "Thank you, sir. Now come closer." From the beast's mouth, he spat what looked like an ordinary compass, except there was no markings from north, south, east, and west. This compass will always point you home, no matter the weather, nor sea. Just by holding that compass, it will know where you came from. The wishing fish was gone. I held that compass, determined never to let it go, and off I went. For the first time since getting lost at sea, I had hoped the bubbling brine sea began to clear. The bubbling brine sea began to clear up. The farther I traveled, when I saw my first school of fish, I knew I had finally left the Dead Sea. And when I saw my first seagull soaring through the air, I knew I was close to land. The bar-goers had settled down, even when the story was if the story was a lie, it was still a story. Emmy, on the other hand, had not laughed once. From the look in her eye, you could tell she fully believed Mr. Jin's story, down to the wishing fish. My ship found solace in the harbor, and I was finally home on dry land. Everyone, the whole town, couldn't believe I was still alive, and with the cargo in perfect condition. I became somewhat of a legend, and fancied myself a good amount of work from it. The amazing Jin, rain or shine, sea dead or alive, he'll find a way. Mr. Jin laughed to himself, and he reached for a pitcher of beer, intending to drink from it. But that was a long time ago. I prefer safer waters now. Even though most celebrated my expedition, I had to answer the lady of my life. A spitfire she is. She had me pinned to her side for months. Didn't want me leaving until I learned my lesson, I guess. He pitched his voice high enough to shatter glass. You stupid boy. How many times must I tell you not to leave your brain at home? If you ever disrespect me again, I promised you I'd slash your sails, didn't I? A real woman's voice pierced through the crowd. Mr. Jin spat out his beer, foam dripping out his nose as he tried to hide behind the bar. Mrs. Jin marched across the bar, parting the crowd like a knife through warm butter. She grabbed Mr. Jin's tailcoat, yanking him back into his seat. Nose to nose, she remarked, Now tell me again, didn't the doctor tell you you need to be off that blubbering knee of yours till the end of the week? Well, now, honey, it was feeling quite good, and what day is it? Well, it's Monday. She spun around faster than the light. You! An olive-skinned man jumped. Could you please take my husband home? I'd feel much better if you give him a ride on your mule. I promise I'll pay you back. No, Mrs. Jin, my mule's right outside. He just looked relieved. It wasn't going to set him. She wasn't going to set him on fire next. Now, get your butt out of here and you head straight home. I will be right behind you. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Jin hobbled out of the pub, ghostly white, as if he had just passed by death. Mrs. Jin paid for Mr. Jin's drink. Thank you for letting me know, Robert. The pub owner pocketed the money. Of course, ma'am. We all want Mr. Jin to get better so he can get to sailing again. Mrs. Jin chuckled. The children watched as Mr. Jin was hoisted onto the mule and led away by the mule's owner. I can't believe he lied about a wishing fish. I never even heard of one, remarked Sol. I thought adults didn't lie about such things, remarked Dodie. Yeah, but it was pretty entertaining, said Loon. But Emmy couldn't hear him, since she was already chasing after Mr. Jin. Excuse me, Mr. Jin, called Emmy as she ran up beside him. Mr. Jin was deflated atop the mule. What is it, love? He moped. What is it, love? He moped. Emmy felt her nerves itching. Is it true about the wishing fish? Her heart pounded. The old man raised an eyebrow in amusement. Why do you ask? Emmy's mind fumbled over the words, thinking, what is the right thing to say to an adult that wouldn't like her thinking of such dangerous things? I would like to find this wishing fish. Emmy looked to the ground, expecting to be told no, like every other adult. For Mr. Jin, as he looked down at the small, chestnut-head girl, it was like a puzzle piece had snapped into place. Oh! You must be Cora's daughter. A small hint of pity crossed his face. Emmy chose to ignore it. That's real sweet of you, kid, thinking of your mother, but you shouldn't worry. A kid's job is to have fun. Lady Miko and the rest of the villagers are doing their very best to help her. Emmy could feel defeat closing in. Another dead end. The olive-skinned man leading the mule cleared his throat, loud enough for even the old man to hear. Mr. Jin became aware of Emmy's frown. Oh, but if it's the wishing fish you're after, your best bet is to wait for a storm. Lightning, preferably. Why lightning? Well, I guess I forgot to mention this part, Mr. Jin coughed, but right before the wishing fish appeared, lightning had struck the sea. If I were to guess, the wishing fish probably sticks close to the sea storms to avoid any humans. If I were it, I wouldn't want to spend my life being hunted by greedy farts who only want free wishes. Emmy squinted at the old man. You're not lying, are you? Good heavens, no. What kind of monster you take me for? Lying to a child? Then my goddess wouldn't forgive me. By then, Odie, Soul, and Loon were running down the path after Emmy. But if you ever do meet that wishing fish, and that's a big if, I'd be sure to be extra kind to it. Nobody, not even a fish, likes to do anything for nothing in return. Emmy nodded. This was news to her. Now, run off with your little friends. I've got nothing more to say. Emmy's friends caught up to her, and Mr. Jim kept on the way home. Okay. What did we learn in the second chapter? What did we succeed in the second chapter? Okay. So, in the second chapter, we learned a little bit more about the town. We also got a little hint of a wishing fish. By the second chapter, you still have people into it because it's whimsical and they're just interested in the world and what's happening. And they're also trying to scrape for clues. This little story kind of introduces maybe an answer to what the storm is, or maybe why the storm is there. We're not sure. But it is a fun story. And of course, because it's an important story, it's not going to be some toss away. So from the second chapter, we're still into the world. You can kind of, chapter 3 is when the crazy shit happens. Chapter 3 is going to be the very first interesting thing to happen in this book. So we're going to, I guess I'll just finish reading it and then I'll just go to writing. Yeah, is it really already been an hour? Crazy. I thought for sure it'd be like 30 minutes. So yeah, if you guys hear this, just let me know like what parts you liked about it. Any input, things you wished happened, things that felt slow, things that were a bit confusing to understand, because I'm trying to convey the world that we're in, basically in these first 3 chapters, and the characters that are in it, and the main character is, I'm aiming for a 10-year-old girl. That's what I'm trying to illustrate for you guys. So I'm hoping it sounds like one. So we're going to chapter 3. And this is basically when this is when the interesting stuff begins. Chapter 3. He came by storm. For the rest of the day, the kids did what Loon wanted to do, since he won Rochambeau, which was playing on the beach. Its brilliant white sand puffed up at every kick. Little fishes edged dangerously close to the shore before the kids jumped to catch them, and very easily swam away. By sunset, they were heading home, exhausted from play. First to break off from the group was Odie, who lived in the fishing district with his father. Then it was Sol and Loon, whose house stood on the sun-bathed hill overlooking the town, surrounded by an orchard. Finally, Emmy had reached the end of the road, where the woods began. Her family's house was nestled in the shade of towering cypress trees. The house was long and narrow, more of a bunching of rooms connected by a long hallway than your ordinary house. The house was similar to Lady Miko's temple, with a tile roof and sliding paper doors, and not one nail used to hold it together. Emmy was sure to leave her sandy sandals on the porch, but forgot that she too was sandy. So imagine her mother's surprise when she stepped out of the kitchen to feel sand between her toes. "Emmy?" her mother called. Emmy turned around halfway down the hall. "You better be taking a bath." "I was." She was not. Emmy was marched to the bathroom, where her mother stripped her to her birthday suit and ran a bath. Hot, steamy water pooled into the tub as mother poured bubble bath in. She placed the bubble bath onto the adjacent shelf, where it always placed, and reached for a shampoo that would always be next to it. But it wasn't. It had fallen onto the floor the night before, without her mother knowing. Emmy looked up from the tub into her mother's milky eyes as she felt around the shelf, unable to see the bottle at her feet. Emmy couldn't help but worry. Without her knowing, Emmy carefully picked up the shampoo bottle and placed it on the shelf next to her mother's hand. Mother's look of irritation softened to relief. Quickly, Emmy sat back down in the tub as her mother lathered the soap onto her hair. As her mother washed her hair, Emmy contemplated Mr. Jin's theory about the wishing fish. Emmy had read many books about storms blowing in magical gems and treasured maps. She even heard of a story about the hero Rumiko riding a storm's tailwinds across the sea without ever touching the water. It didn't seem illogical that a storm could blow in mythical creatures as well. If Emmy ever met a wishing fish, she would wish to explore beyond the mouth of the bay. She would sail far away to places she had read in books. She would wish to know what a volcano smelled like. She would wish to sleep in a bed of fluffy snow. She would wish to find fabulous rings and necklaces of all cuts and colors. But, "Emmy, dear, how was your day?" Mother lovingly asked. Emmy smiled. "Oh, it was so much fun. I got to paint the well house at the shrine, and Lady Miko shared some of her lunch with me. It was pasta, but it had clumps of something. It had clams or something. I hung out with Odie and Sol, and we got to see Mr. Jin tell a story." Emmy's mother nodded at every word. She grabbed a wooden comb and brushed out the kelp Emmy claimed to have swam through at the beach. If her mother focused hard enough, she could make out the small shape of the comb. And if she really squinted, she could make out Emmy smile as she praised the day's adventure. But she was certain now. Her eyesight was getting worse. Even with Lady Miko's tonics, it felt impossible. Even with Lady Miko's tonics, it felt possible at first with all the support from the village. She thought she could recover, but she feared the worst. The edges of her vision were blackening day by day, just like her own mother's. Emmy noticed her mother's worry. But don't worry, I'm not leaving the island with Mr. Jin. I just like his stories, that's all." Mother chortled at her daughter's remark. "Really, you won't sneak into another sailor's boat when I'm not looking?" "I don't do that anymore." Mother laughed. It was only a year ago that she stowed away on a southern trading ship, only to be found before leaving the harbor. "I know, baby, you won't leave without saying goodbye next time, right?" "I won't leave without you, that's what I mean." All right. She rinsed Emmy's hair, leaving no suds, and drained the tub. Emmy was dried and led to the kitchen, where she was fed beef stew with white rice. The herby, juicy meat reminded Emmy she was hungry and ate more than her share. When she stood up from the table, she could barely stand. Sleep was egging her on to bed. Emmy looked out of her little window at the coming storm. Emmy said, "I wish for something amazing to happen." But nothing happened. Emmy sighed and got into bed. Her mother tucked her in and kissed her goodnight, and as she fell asleep, Emmy dreamed of riding on the scaly back of the ocean's waves. Then the walls rumbled, and Emmy's bed began to quake. She woke to the clashing sound of thunder. She jumped out of her bed and ran to the window. "Holy lizards!" cried Emmy as bolts of lightning chased each other across the sky. "I have never seen such a playful storm before." Then a stray bolt of lightning, much faster and brighter than the others, raced across the bay, over the small village, and dived into the forest right behind Emmy's house. The ground jumped. The lightning stopped. Emmy's eyes sparkled like the storm. She grabbed her coat and slipped on her slippers. She had to see where the lightning struck. Emmy sneaked past her mother's room, slid open the front door, then quietly shut the door behind her. Emmy quickly made her way to the forest, climbing over rocks and huge tree roots. She noticed that there was no animals. There was no crickets chirping or mice skittering. It was quiet. Emmy thought, what could scare all the animals away? She remembered a story about a monster that lived in a forest. Emmy shivered even though she wore a coat and wandered deeper into the forest. She came upon a large pool of fizzling blue water. Static tickled Emmy's nose and cheeks. This was where the lightning struck. She slowly came closer to the pool, unsure of what could be in it. She looked deep into the blue water and saw bubbles floating to the top and something shiny swimming just beneath the surface. "The wishing fish," Emmy breathed. Emmy watched as its scaly back sank deeper into the pool. Without much thought, she plunged herself into the pool, kicking after its sparkling jeweled tail. It dove deeper. Emmy followed. Only the tiniest of glitters from the tail could be seen in the dark waters, but it did not hinder Emmy's pursuit of the beast. She had so many things to ask of the fish. She wanted to know what volcanoes smelled like. She wanted to know what snow felt like. She wanted to see the world and find the most beautiful palace for her mother to live in. There were so many things Emmy wanted, but the fish was just out of reach, and she couldn't hold her breath for much longer. "Please," thought Emmy as she reached for the scaly tail. "I just want something amazing to happen." She closed her hand only to find another in it. She squinted. She couldn't see who the hand belonged to, but the hand squeezed hers, not wanting to let go. Still holding on to the hand, Emmy swam for the surface, willing her tired legs to kick a little more. Emmy burst to the water's surface and inhaled the deepest, sharpest breath in her life. Exhausted, she dragged herself and the hand and whatever was attached to the hand to the shore and collapsed into a coughing fit, then fell into a deep, restful sleep. The sun had begun to rise, and the sun blushed a lively pink. Emmy's eyes blinked open. Her first thought was, "Why is my bedroom ceiling the sky?" All at once she recalled what happened last night. The lighting, the forest, the glowing blue pool, the wishing fish. She looked to her side. Beside her lay a boy. He had funny-looking ears and a dazzling silk shirt that reflected all the colors of the rising sun. This wasn't a fish. Okay. Oh my god, that took a while. Oy, so basically, that's so far. That is the story so far. And from here, I hope to continue it with you guys. Oh my god. I get sleepy already. Oh, wait, I'm not yawning. You're yawning. Fuck you. basically, I'm hoping that I get to do more of this with you guys. I'm going to continue writing it with you guys along the way. So basically, now the next thing to do is to just show you what's next. So if we were to look at the little act map, because I have it here. I haven't scanned it into the computer, but I can just hold it up for you guys. Okay. So let's see if we get a good visual here. Okay, if this wasn't in reverse, is this in reverse? Is this reverse for you guys? It doesn't look like, no, it's not reverse. It's not reverse. So basically, we are here in Act 1. Okay? In Act 1, we have already done the hook. And we've done point 2, which is supposed to be filler. Basically, you're establishing the norm. And number 3 is the impetus. And let me look what the impetus is again, so I can not fuck it up for you guys. Impetus, the event that propels the character into turmoil, threat, or opportunity. This would be the opportunity. Or a threat. We're not sure. But let's just look at it as an opportunity. Emmy asked for something amazing happened. We also gained in this first act too, in this first column of this act, is what how Emmy's character, what Emmy cares about in the world she lives in. That's what we learned. We learned that Emmy's a very kind girl and a very adventurous girl and is mischievous at times. But we also learned that she has a ailing mother that's going blind, and she cares about her a lot. And that's kind of establishes her big drive of why she does the things she does. Which what is going to help us in the second column in response to the impetus, which is the magical thing, opportunity that can change your life, either for the better or for the worse. It depends on what she does, and it's a choice she has to make. The impetus is the magical thing that happens, but by the end of the first act, we want to answer the dramatic question, and we want the dramatic question. We're not answering the dramatic question, we're making the dramatic question, which is something along the lines of, if we were to base it off of another story, is Luke Skywalker. Let's go with Star Wars. So if we're going to base off this, we can say Act 1, the hook was Princess Leia sending out the message. And the impetus was Luke finding the message, right? Asking for help. And he's like, oh, I want to do that. I want to help. And then him finding Obi-Wan. And then him in the dramatic and then pretty much in it, he chooses to go along with it. That was his choice. In Act 1, he makes his choice to either to go along with it or his response to the impetus. And that makes the dramatic question, which is the end, is Luke going to become an actual Jedi? Is he going to be strong enough to save Princess Leia? That's the dramatic question. It's the question that we, the audience, need to be handed to us in order for us to, be engaged with the story, because everything that comes after that is the build up to answering that dramatic question. And typically that dramatic question is answered in the third act at the climax. Whether the climax is the response to the dramatic question. as will they survive? Will they do it? And so I'm going for in chapter. So if we in these ones, these are 3 chapters. In the last 3 chapters, we got to this bottom. Then we can assume that it will take 3 more chapters to get to the dramatic question, or 2. It might be good to do 2. Just speed it up. I don't really see I can do 3. Let's pull up my little flow chart. How about that? Okay. Here is the plot. Okay. Here is the plot. It's super fun. I already got some it's good to know here, because from here the story gets more complicated. Once the dramatic question is stated, right, the story then can break off into other segments to work around. So as I'm building up this next act, I'm keeping in mind what I'm staging for to answer the dramatic question. It's good to have different plots along with the A plot. For here, I don't know if it's become obvious to you guys, but Emmy and Ryu, which is the little boy from the pond we have encountered, traveled to the King of Dragons. That is something we have hinted at in the very first chapter, which is Suijin, and we now know that it is now involved. We are now going to take Emmy and Ryu, and they're going to travel to the King of Dragons. A B plot is something that I used to get tripped up on. Is, oh god, what's a good B plot? I'm trying to make up something, and usually it's me making another story around it, but it ends up butting into each other. So I found that the best B plots or C plots is just what life would be like. What would happen? What would happen if Emmy and Ryu, suddenly disappeared onto a dangerous adventure? Obviously, all the adults that we have established in the first chapter would start a search party to go after Emmy. That now gives us a B plot, which is interesting because we're now going to have instances in the writing where they get very close to bumping into each other, and we also get different perspectives of what we learn from it, and we just keep engaging with these characters that we have already fallen in love with, that we care about, and we continue to make a better thing. So my idea is that plot B would be Lady Miko, Emmy's mom, and Mr. Jin in a search party after Emmy. And of course, since I have these little kids, this is something I was very torn about, if I was going to bring the village kids along or not. I didn't feel like doing it because I felt like if I included the kids, it would not give you as much fear. It wouldn't be much stressful because it just felt like you're still home. I think a big thing that makes this interesting is that Emmy is going to be together with this stranger that we're going to learn is not a very normal person, and she has to work together in order to get to the King of Dragons. Why they're doing that is going to be established in the next 2 chapters. Because by the end of chapter 5, they will be in the midst of conflict. And that conflict is going to be something fun and crazy. That's going to be like, oh my god, what the heck? And that's typically like, another fight. Think action sequence. Thrown into peril. And from there, you get we go into the Act 2 and Act 3 conundrum. So, Act 2 and Act 3, which is the rising action and descending. Rising is, oh, we're doing the right thing. We're doing everything right. Think of the stock market. We're doing everything right. Everything's going perfectly. And, oh my god, we fucked up. We were so fucking wrong. We had no idea what we're thinking. We always want an ascending and descending action. It gives you conflict. It's like a mini climax. Because Act 2, you just think, yes, we're going the right way. Everything's going exactly the way it wants to. But if we just did that all the way to climax, it'd be boring. So by the end of Act 2, something has to go wrong. Either we spitballing. Either the parents get kidnapped. Emi or you were wrong about their whole message in the first place. There was they needed to do more, or something's wrong, and they messed up, and it was unavoidable or could be avoided. But basically, at the end of Act 2, midpoint, something bad happened, a disillusionment of what was supposed to be done, and the plan changes. The plan's changed, and that's what Act 3 is that change of plan to the very lowest point, and you get to the climax. TV series do that too. Typically, it's just Act 2 and Act 3 back to back to back, back to back to back throughout the whole season. And then the end of the season, hopefully, you get the answer to that first dramatic question that you posed in episode 1. Because if this was a TV series in today, right? Those first 3 chapters would be the first episode, right? If it was an hour-long episode, we would probably include chapters 3. We'd probably include chapters 4 and 5 too, where we're throwing in dramatic question, the whole Act 1. And then from there, it's Act 2, Act 3, Act 2, Act 3. This is going to be, I've already established it, that this is going to be a shorter length book. I'm going for word count of Alice in Wonderland and How to Train Your Dragon. That's pretty much what I'm aiming for. So you get an idea of how long this is going to go on. So Act 1, blah, blah, blah. So let's look at it. Act 1. 1. Welcome to Dryland. This is Welcome to Dryland. I kind of spitball insert from some names are Medley, Nibimono, Hot Pot Island. I'm thinking Hot Pot Island is better because I can't pronounce it. I'm too tired. And if I can't pronounce it, I little kid can't. Apologize. Mr. Jin's story, The Concept of Wishing Fish, Emi's Own Wants and Desires, is part 2. Number 3, The Impetus, the sudden arrival of Ryu. Number 4, Ryu needs help making a portal and demands Emi's help since she's the only one that can see her. That can see him. I messed that up. Number 5, Emi tries to do it the right way by asking for help from the experts, from her mom and Lady Miko, but they are too busy with storm preparations that they can't bother to listen. 6, Emi tries to do it the right way by asking for help from the experts, from her mom and Lady Miko, but they are too busy with storm preparations that they can't bother to listen. 7, Subplot A. So Emmy decides to help Ryu because she feels bad for him since she's very worried about never going home. We empathize with Ryu and makes the choice to steal the tools necessary to make the portal. Ryu knows how to make the portal. And then 6, which is the dramatic question. Then they make portal, but Emmy also gets sucked in and they are thrown off course, stranded with no way to get home. How will Emmy get home? Are they safe? And that's our dramatic question that we're going to answer throughout the book. I also liked how this story kicked off because I kind of established in the previous chapter, that Emmy was known for sneaking onto sailor ships. So you would think that that's how she was going to, leave the island. We kind of got the idea that she was going to leave the island. Because that's just kind of what an adventure is, and she's very adventurous. But we did not expect her to leave without her choice, which is what makes it fun. Her choice, right? Her choice to help Ryu establishes stakes, which is, oh, now you're in danger, and now you get the dramatic question. She made the choice to help Ryu, and thus the answer was that you get sucked up into the magic portal as well. And now you're stuck doing it. This is your life now. So, yeah, I think I can get this done in 2 chapters. I feel like chapters 4 will be more you getting to know Ryu and Ryu being a little weirdo, and then him giving in and saying that he needs and finding out that Emmy can help him and thus demanding help. And then chapter 5 will be Emmy trying to get the adults to help her, but ultimately she can't. So she'll have to do it herself, which is, her choice, but it's also like an iffy one because that's not what the adults would want her to do. And that will ultimately get her into trouble, which is stranding her into a portal, and which leads to the lands you into the action, which is life-threatening battle with magic beasts, then imprisoned by locals. How do I fight a monster? Where are we? And that becomes Act 2. We begin with the subplot, which is Island discovers Emmy is missing. And that's where we are. So, let's see. I think we got pretty far today. But yeah, when we get back tomorrow, it'll be me writing this with you guys listening. It's getting kind of late, and I hope that you guys have a great night. Hope you're doing well, and if you guys do ever come across this VOD, feel free to, stop right in. All right. So yeah, there's no fucking, we're gonna have a lot of fun here. We're gonna try and do our best on this together. As I go, I hope to explain more to you on the writing process, and then we can kind of chat about more. I'll have a little better of a schedule of what we can talk about and what'd be more interesting, because I also want to get into more research wise, and we kind of can, and I also want to do more videos where I would like to do some videos where I do some critiquing, and like where we can analyze other works of literature or art and movie, and we can bring it over to our side to use in the stories that we're making. And from there, I hope we can finish this. I'm kind of aiming to finish this book at least by the end of the month. So if you guys stick around, you'll be here for me to finish this book, and you'll see me publish this on Amazon. I don't know how to do that yet, but it's better to be done with this before I say I'm gonna sell a book, right? So yeah, I hope you guys have a great night. You have all the warm milk and cookies you need to go to bed, because I am indeed tired as well. And I hope that we meet again. But yeah, have a good night. Bye.